Throughout all the lifetimes on Earth, your soul is gradually moving through different levels of initiation. Once those are achieved, we are so-called ascended, and then we can start incarnating in different star systems. In some cases, like for star seeds, you can have simultaneous incarnations in those higher systems and on Earth. But for majority of people, we are moving through those initiations, which are the same, identical for every single soul. It's our curriculum that we are here to master, and once it's done, we move into higher levels of consciousness. So let's look deeper into those initiations and what you need to cultivate in yourself in order to move more easily through those initiations. Throughout our lifetimes on Earth, we are moving through different initiations. Once those initiations are mastered and achieved, we are so-called ascended. We become an ascended master in our own way. Those initiations are identical for every single soul incarnated, and they are the same themes and topics that we are to master. But the way how the soul is ascending through those initiations can be different. It can be unique depending on your soul's history, your ancestry, and the way your soul has descended into this dimension in the first place. If you are interested in finding out how to navigate those initiations, let's watch this video and find out. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Sylvia Salo, and I help Lightworkers, starseeds, priestesses to help them remember who they are, to step into their highest potential and channel their gifts into creating a life they desire. And today I want to talk about the initiation. The initiation is a term that may be widely used, but in the sense that I'm using it today is those major initiations that the soul is moving through. So those initiations are something that the soul moves through a series of lifetimes. The word initiation can be used in many different contexts. Sometimes people call an initiation something that maybe is not in that strictly spiritual term. Today, I'm going to use the term initiation in regards to the major initiations that a soul moves through on its ascension journey through a series of lifetimes. Typically, the soul is moving through just one initiation over many lifetimes. In my mystery school of remembrance, where I work with light workers, starseeds and priestesses, I have seen that typically the soul can move through an initiation over like thousands of years, so it can feel like a very slow process. On the other hand, now in this golden age, we have the opportunity to move through a series of initiations in just one lifetime. There's that potentiality. Whether we choose it or not, it's up to us, our soul, our free will, the things we give our focus, attention and time, the way we cultivate our gifts, the way we use our consciousness, how we channel our soul's essence into our life, so we can step into that potential and move through different initiations, or we continue working on one initiation. Whichever way, it's okay. There is like nowhere to hurry, really, so it's this gradual, gentle process. The people who come into my mystery school, they are typically between the first 3 initiations, and through the curriculum that I crafted in the mystery school, it actually follows those initiations. It follows them level by level, and so they are able to finalize some initiation. That being said, to finalize an initiation, to master it, it's not something that you can demand. It's not something you can expect. It's not something that you do a course and you are going to master it. It doesn't work that way. But together we are opening doors, and I'm holding very high frequency for their souls and helping them resolve any soul wounds, any blockages and stuckness on the soul level that may not be useful for them. And so there is that potentiality which is much higher. That being said, when you are being initiated into a higher level of consciousness, which is what those initiations are about, you are first experiencing some kind of ignition on the soul level. It may feel like there is like more spiritual fire. The reason for it is because your soul's essence and truly your soul's radiance needs to increase its shyness, if you call it that way, for you to be able to come to the threshold of an initiation. So you basically come to knock on the door of the initiation through your efforts over those lifetimes. Once your soul's essence reaches a certain momentum, or we could say certain percentage of light, you open the door to that initiation, or better said, it's opened for you. And there is some kind of like, as I said, spiritual fire. There is like, you really feel like you have entered a completely different kind of living. Everything needs to update your way of thinking, the way of feeling, the things you think are important. Everything updates and upgrades. And then as we go through that particular initiation, it takes a really long time. So there's a difference between stepping into an initiation and then actually moving through all those sub-initiations of each initiation, those like lessons and things to master within one initiation, and then eventually mastering the initiation. This can be a really long process. So being initiated into something doesn't mean that we have mastered it. It can take lifetimes, or it can happen sooner, faster now. But that's an option that we choose to step into or not. You can think of those initiations as higher levels of consciousness on that cosmic scale are initiating you to basically continue your ascension journey. They are like calling you up to travel higher, and there is this like almost gravitation pull. It's like something's calling you. I'm sure you know this call if you are on this channel. You likely have been always thinking like there's something more, and no matter how much you heal things, how many things you create, how many things change, still something more is calling you. It's this pull of those higher levels of consciousness. We can also think of those higher levels of consciousness as different dimensions. And so we are basically being initiated into different dimensions. And each of those dimensions have like their own unique way of basically channeling the energy. It has a little bit different laws. It's like you would go into a new territory where you've never been before, and it would be really useful to have the map. Well, in this case, the map usually happens through your soul's experiences as you are moving through that territory. But imagine that you go somewhere where you've never really been before, or to a different planet, and you need to adjust. You need to like figure out what's going on where you are, and what's the right path for you. You can take many turns, you can be walking in circles, you can walk whichever way. This is where we have the free will. And so when these dimensions are initiating you, they are basically igniting your ascension. It's like, continuing the next leg of the ascension journey back to the source. Another way how to think of those dimensions or these higher levels of consciousness that are initiating you is these are different emanations of source consciousness. So imagine that the one source is just shining its light, its consciousness across everything that exists. And it has like in the lower dimension, it has different aspects that govern different parts of the cosmic occurrences and everything in the cosmos, how things operate, the universal laws. And it also governs how the soul moves through those dimensions. So it governs the microcosmos within us and the macrocosmos around us, as within, so without. And so these are the true initiations that are calling your soul to keep ascending. Now, from our point of view on the earth, like if you are in the third dimension, there are 3 initiatory pathways, 3 ascension pathways, and every soul chooses one. You can also, after you choose one of those, you have more choices open to you. So it's not like every single person ascends in the identical way. It really depends on what your soul has been through in those different lifetimes. That's why I find like understanding those lifetimes and mostly looking at those like main themes and patterns very useful, because you know where your soul has been, and it really helps you to understand where you are headed next. Because again, we want to have some kind of like roadmap as much as we can. Even if it's a vague one, it's still useful for us to know how to orientate ourselves correctly in the time and space continuum. And so those initiations, they basically start working with you. But it's really like in those comics books, or I don't know, fairy tales or wherever, where you have the angel and devil sitting on your shoulders. Why? Because before we master that particular initiation, with that we master also understanding of the laws of that higher level of consciousness. Before this happens, the same energy, the same universal force can kind of like mess up your life. It doesn't have to, but it happens often. Why is that? Because first of all, it's very confusing for the soul. Like, you know, you have stepped through a threshold of something changed, everything changed, and still it looks the same, right, externally, and you don't know how to navigate this space. And maybe you talk to someone who hasn't been through the same initiation, or, you know, you maybe talk to someone who is on a different ascension pathway. And it can be also confusing, the information they give you. This way, truly understanding where you are more or less is very useful. But it will guide you there anyway. And so those initiatory forces, they need to be respected. We need to remain humble. Because if we don't respect it or we don't remain humble, they can create mess out of your life. Some like very common examples of what I have seen, how it looks like here on this 3D level, is that people go into addictions instead. You know, instead of moving through that initiation, they go into addiction. So the same force, this universal force that could be very beneficial, once mastered, can create this kind of mess. Then people, for example, completely disconnect from this like 3D reality. They don't want to work, they don't care about money, they don't care about their health. They withdraw from all relationships. This can be also an example, not always obviously, but it can be an example of like this universal force messing up with you, because there's something you are not getting. You are not moving forward, but you are moving backwards. Another example is being stuck with the idea of your twin flame. This is particularly related to the Venusian or Venus Ascension pathway. And if you are interested in learning more, I have a whole 2-hour 40-minute lecture that I just did like 2 weeks ago on this Ascension pathway relating to the higher heart. This is the pathway where you typically experience your twin flame connection, and I'm explaining like how to move through those different stages there. You can find it now on my website under a program called Feminine Secret Arts, and that will be later a part of my signature program, Feminine Power, if you're interested. And then we have Ascension pathways related mostly to the mind, mastering the mind. But there is a huge difference, as you know, between wisdom and logic. There's a difference between learning to use the mind creatively and correctly and having the ego ruling the show. Then another major of those ascension pathways, if you look from the perspective of the earth, is the pathway where is lots of difficulties, like lots of struggle. I would almost say lots of suffering. And it's connected to the moon. And this mind ascension pathway is connected to Mercury. So you can think like Mercury, Moon, and Venus are the first three options, and then we have more choices, and then it gets more diverse after. But those initiations is something that you are likely going through if you are on my channel. Not everyone has started that ascension initiatory journey yet. But I would say like about 90% or maybe more of people are somewhere between those like first three initiation ascension journeys, including like the 0 one, which is before people start going through that initiation. From what I have seen with my clients inside of my mystery school of remembrance, some souls are already, like when they are incarnated in this life, on a particular initiatory journey, ascension journey, because it's a continuation of something, let's say, that started like 4,000 or 5,000 years ago in ancient Egypt. And they are still trying to figure some things out. That's why they find me, to help them like move through it, to understand what's going on. But as I said, it's very important to respect and be humble with those forces. For example, if you think that 3D reality is good for nothing and you despise it, it's going to teach you a painful lesson. You need to respect everything. Everything has the right to exist. We just have to find the correct relationship to those things that exist. We don't have to prioritize one thing over the other. We just want to understand everything, if that makes sense. But let's now dive into some steps that will help you to master those initiations. So I put together a list of things that would be useful for anyone who is anywhere between those like first three ascension pathways or the first three initiations. All these things are really key to understand and master, and they will be very useful if you focus on them. This is something that applies, I think, to everyone, but then of course there are big nuances to your specific soul's journey. So let's start with the first one. It's very important to understand the language of your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind speaks to you in the language of symbols. It's a symbolic thinking, similar to when you have a dream. It's not like literal thing, like some people, seers, they can see things in their dreams about future and it's literal, it's going to happen like that, or it happened that way. But for most dreams, they are symbolical. You need to understand, decode the meaning of those symbols. So I would invite you to really start working with symbols. There are so many. There's been used for, I don't know, tens, hundreds, thousands of years, because it's the most common language. When it comes to interpreting symbols, take your time to sit with one particular symbol and really see what it does to your soul, what it opens up within your soul, what does it mean to you. And only after that you can do some research on this symbol and look at what other cultures have been saying about those particular symbols. But why this is important is because you need to understand your mind, what your mind is telling you. Many times I see people take things literally. They think it's like literally like that, and then it creates lots of confusion. Very likely, if you are anywhere between those three initiations, Your mind will always talk to you in symbolical way, in the symbolical language. So maybe take things less literally and spend more time understanding, decoding those symbols. The second key to self-initiation and this ascension pathway is to understand there are no shortcuts. There's like literally no tool outside of you that is it, that is going to make it for you. There is no teacher that will just give you like everything. Why? Because you need to learn to tap into your own inner resources. You are not on this planet to figure out the perfect tool or structure. It takes time, you need to dig within so much. You need to spend so much time with yourself, going deep within. You cannot like make a shortcut by using ayahuasca or some ritual. Even tarot cards don't help you with anything. They just help you to maybe understand, what your subconscious mind is trying to tell you, but it's still just a tool. Tools can be useful, but you have to understand that they are not there to be used forever. You use it when it works for you and you toss it away when it doesn't, knowing that what you are actually aiming at is to truly grow naturally from within. You need to be super patient. Don't try to rush and hurry, because the more you rush and hurry, the slower it gets. If you knew that everything exists in eternity, then there is nowhere to hurry. But with that, you make continuous effort every single day and it compounds. And if you take small steps every day, in terms of getting to know your true self, it's going to compound really quickly, and so in the end it will look like you move much faster than other people who are looking for shortcuts. The next key to Ascension pathway is to really understand those reoccurring themes, soul themes, those things that keep happening in your life over and over and over again. And for those of you who know your past lives, you can also look at those themes that's been happening for many lifetimes and ages, truly. And so I invite you to look at your life and really just narrow down the main energetics there. You don't need to get stuck into details like my mom told me this when I was 5 years old. That's cool for the inner child healing, but you want to see that bigger picture. So you want to see what's the underlying energy, what are the underlying dynamics, energetics of your life. What are the themes that you keep experiencing over and over again? From my experience as a teacher and as a healer, there are maximum 5 reoccurring themes. You don't get overwhelmed with everything. It may feel like you're processing everything, that you have so many different things going on, but if you just look into those energetics, then you find out it's just the same kind of energy I've been dealing with. It just manifests itself through different situations to get my attention, but we are still talking about one thing actually. So get clear on what those are, because this is what you are supposed to focus on and master. The next key to initiation is to look at your relationship to your soul's power and generally to your relationship regarding power. Why? Because again, in my mystery school, when we go into different lifetimes, what I'm looking at is not I don't care you were this and that at this time. I actually personally don't even look at the lives during the last 2000 years, because I don't think they are so important as we like to think. I'm looking at those lifetimes that occurred during the past golden ages, or where there was a huge shift in the collective field, because those lives are directly connected to your life now. And what I keep seeing there over and over and over and over again, I would say with every single of my client. I also see it in other people who are not my clients, because As I said, I'm a seer. I look at you and I can read your soul's journey. And so I see it with everyone truly, is this. At some point, the soul has misused power or was incarnated during a time where there was like some misuse of power and the soul was negatively influenced by it. This creates the deepest soul wounds. It creates such a deep scars in your soul that you will make sure you will never step into your power. You make sure you will never step into your potential. This needs to heal. You need to address this. So look at your relationship to power in general and to your soul's power. The next key is to look at your fear of darkness. It is similar, but this fear of darkness is very much connected to actually Christ consciousness and the solar principle. So you may have this unconscious fear that the darkness will catch you no matter what you do, no matter how you evolve, no matter how fast you run. It's always right behind you. You need to face this fear. You need to look at whether you are perhaps subconsciously running away from so-called darkness, however you feel it or define it. Lots of light workers have this feeling like they want to keep low profile. They don't want to be visible because then the darkness will see them. Well, the only way how to truly, be so-called safe is to become a master. It's the only way. You cannot keep hiding and think that this is like, if you don't see it, it doesn't see you. You need to understand what's going on. So you need to look at this fear, if you have it or not, and then work with it and process it. The next key is to understand the natural and universal laws. I know that many people say it's not important to understand why something happens, how it happens, how things unfold. I don't agree. I think it's extremely useful. Of course, you don't want to get lost in the how and why at the expense of doing an actual soul work. But it should go hand in hand in a beautiful balance. I think we should understand how the universal laws work and operate through us and through the cosmos as much as we can from our perspective. It will never be perfect. It will never be perfect understanding. But we are not aiming for perfection. We are aiming at using our brain to the fullest of its capacity. We are aiming at using our philosophical thinking. We are aiming at asking questions for which we don't perhaps receive the answer the next day or 10 years later, but we still keep coming back to it. We are opening up our consciousness. So you want to really understand the bigger picture. The bigger picture when it comes to your own soul's journey, and the bigger picture when it comes to the universal forces. Understanding things really helps, and it mostly opens up your consciousness. It develops your consciousness. It helps you to ascend. You need to understand the laws in order to be able to follow them, to respect them, in order to be able to be the right steward of those universal forces. If you don't understand them, then how can you be? The next key to initiation is to spend time alone. I think this is clear, and I think it comes naturally to many people. But when you spend time alone, you use it actively. So you are not on your phone, you're not reading books, you're not having any distractions. You are not listening to your mind telling you some nonsense. You actually go deep within. You actually keep diving into the ocean of you. You're actually moving through different layers and levels of you. And you're trying to understand and remember who you are. So you use that time creatively, and you make sure that you have the time to go within. It doesn't have to be 3 hours a day. It can be half an hour. It can happen when you are on a walk in nature. It can happen when you are doing something so-called active. But the main thing is that you keep going within. You are fully connected to your inner self. The next key to initiation and ascension pathway is to work with your mind and your emotions. I keep saying this over and over again. It's because the first initiations relate to your emotional body and your mental body. You need to be able to understand them, to heal any patterns, and to use them correctly so that they are in the service to the spirit, not the ego ruling the show. So spend really time healing, understanding, decoding your mind and your emotions. You will know once this is done, because your mind becomes still. It becomes completely still. You don't have any thoughts really. You can of course use your mind and think, but it's like a still lake that keeps receiving downloads, because the mind is designed to receive information, not to figure it out. But you can only receive it when it's still. And when it comes to emotions, it's similar. It feels very stable and like joyful, but not in that excited way. If there's any extreme, it means there's something unhealed, there's some ego in it. So it's this kind of stable joy, contentment, happiness, which is stable. It's not like, too much or too little. It feels just right. That way you know that your emotional body has healed, and obviously that you don't get triggered, right? That you remain peaceful. The next key to initiation is to cultivate your presence. And it's not just like being present with other people or yourself, but I would say it's like being present with the universal forces, being present with your soul, your higher self, your spirit and God. To actually cultivate stillness inside of you, that peaceful feeling. And when your aura is present, it's very powerful, it's very impactful. So don't be cluttered with all these nonsenses that can wait, or they are just not important. Focus on presence, on truly spending time in quietness, inside and outside. And the last key is to cultivate your faculties and your gifts to the fullest of your ability. This is also something I do in the mystery school. I help people to embrace their gifts and deepen them. Now, what I have been noticing is that most people think like, I would like to have the gift of hearing things or seeing things or whatever. They always want to have some gift that they don't have. Well, it doesn't matter what you don't have. I want you to really look at what you do have and understand it, master it to the fullest of your capacity. You don't have to rush to open your third eye by force. It's going to happen naturally. But from my perspective and really long experience, is that you develop those gifts once you master the ones you have. Then the new ones are initiated naturally. You don't need to force it. For instance, if you can feel the energy, try to really master the energetics. Make it your primary language. Listen to what that energy communicates to you. Make choices from what it's trying to tell you. Use it for your benefit and for the benefit of others. Master it as much as you can, and don't worry whether your third eye is open and you can see things or not. It's going to happen. These gifts, they open with different levels of those initiation and ascension pathways, and it also depends on what your soul has been mastering in those different lifetimes. There shouldn't be ever any force or trying to be something else. Work with what you have and use it to the fullest of your capacity. Alright, so this is all. I think this video got a lot longer than I wanted to, but hopefully you enjoyed it. And if you did, thank you so much for watching. And I ask you to share it with other people. If you know that someone could benefit from this message, from understanding these things, please share this video with them. And like and subscribe to my channel so I know that you enjoy this type of content. Thank you so much, and I see you next time.